Hello everyone. Hi, this is another release review video for MobiFlight. This time it's version 9.2 and it's my special Christmas gift for you guys out there. I released it on the 24th of December of 2021, so it's definitely like a little extra gift under your virtual Christmas tree. In this video, we're going to take a look at all the good new things that are included in this release so that you know what has been added as new features, what got enhanced, and also, of course, what bug fixes have made it into the release. At the end of the video, you will understand that you will have to update to this release because it's the best and coolest ever. So stay tuned, follow me along. Let's take a look together at every single improvement. Before we start with the review, I want to say thank you to every one of you. Thank you for becoming a MobiFlight sponsor by either a PayPal donation or our newly available GitHub sponsor program. Thank you so much for this very encouraging feedback, and really it helps me to put more effort and free time into this project. Thank you so much for being a sponsor. All right, let's head over to the MobiFlight project website and take a look at the release notes. So here we are, MobiFlight.com. Go to the download area where you have downloaded maybe MobiFlight before, or if you're new to MobiFlight, where you can download it so that the installer installs it for you. And then here in the lower part is the release notes, and I make always this extra effort just for you guys to collect everything that we have on GitHub also and copy it over to this website so that you have a very nice overview of all the cool things that have made it into the individual release. So let's take a look at release 9.2. First of all, it's also coming with updated events for that we pulled off HubHop. HubHop is our new cool project where we are collecting all the events for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. So if you are using Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, then obviously you are very interested in this. And also, a new MobiFlight firmware is bundled. So this is really cool. And this is actually one of the core features of this release, that we have a new firmware release. And it's firmware 2.0. And I decided to make it a 2.0 because there has been a lot of refactoring done. And I want to take advantage of this opportunity to make a big shout out to LRAL66 and also Neil, from Discord server. They put a lot of effort into helping me getting this firmware out the door. LRAL did a lot of the heavy lifting on the performance improvements. Basically, we took a look at all the different libraries that we were using for all the different devices that MobiFlight supports, and we reduced the memory footprint by a lot. And as you can see, we can now say that we have a stable support for, or a stable firmware version also for the Arduino Uno and the Arduino ProMicro, which were supported before, but always had trouble because the memory that was used was already kind of hitting the limits of what these little boards can support. This is now really in a stable format, or in a stable state. We put a lot of effort into testing and checking and improving. So everyone out there who used to use a Uno and had problems, or a ProMicro, will really like this new firmware version. So make sure that you update once MobiFlight asks you or reminds you of this update. Everything is automatically happening. You don't have to worry. It should be very flawless. If you experience any issues, even though that we have tested so much, just let us know. Visit our Discord server or go to the MobiFlight forums and let us know if you're experiencing any issues. But also the entire firmware upload process has been kind of rewritten and improved a lot. And we will get to this maybe also a little later in the improvement section. But yeah, this is basically the core of this release. The biggest block of update is that we have a very stable and very efficient firmware version. It's a great baseline that we now can build upon and that we can also enhance over the time. So as I already said, LRL and Neil helped me with this. Another cool thing is the migration to Platform.io or Platformio. I actually don't really know what the official pronunciation for this project is, but it's a really, really, really cool platform for Arduino development. So for the entire firmware that is happening on Platform.io. And it also allows for better integration into GitHub Actions. And I think Neil has done a fantastic job on helping to get our build pipeline in place. And this all might sound now very technical, and it might not really be like super important to most of you, but I can tell from a developer point of view, it's a huge step forward into a modern way of building our firmware and have this, it's a big improvement also for collaboration. Another new feature, which is super cool, is that we can now pull the events from HubHop directly. Okay, so you all know that HubHop is a MobiFlight project built with the community, maintained by the community. It's an amazing effort where we are collecting all the different event configurations for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 airplanes, for all the different vendors and whatnot. And we're keeping this list up to date. And if you go and start MobiFlight, and then you will see that you can actually go here to the download latest events, and everything that is on the website right now, the current status, is going to get downloaded to your computer, and you have the most recent presets available that you can choose from. So if, for example, if you're going to create something like an input for, I don't know, maybe the lights setting or whatever of your CJ4 jet, then you can go and look it up on here, the action type. There is the MSFS 2020 events. So all these events that you can find here are actually pulled down from HubHop, and you can do whenever there's an update. It's up to your own convenience to go here and download the latest configurations, the latest events from HubHop. The only thing that you have to take in mind is that it also requires a restart of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. So the best thing to do this is first start MobiFlight, update your HubHop events, and then start MobiFlight afterwards. So that would be probably the best way to make sure that all the updates that you just pulled off the website are actually making it into your current Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 session. All right, let's take another look. So this is the features. These are the really big features. And then let's take a look at the improvements. Another thing that came with the firmware activities and the refactoring that we did is that we are now able to provide a board configuration as a JSON file on your installation. So it has been a problem sometimes in the past that different Arduino boards are manufactured by different vendors, and MobiFlight uses the vendor ID and product ID to identify them if they are supported modules. So the board configuration now, if I go and take a look, or maybe we should go to GitHub and take a look there. So we have boards, and then we have these JSON files for the Uno, the Micro, and the Mega. And you can see that it contains also this list of hardware IDs, where we now can more easily add additional IDs. And also if you find that your Arduino Mega is not supported and you find out that the vendor ID, product ID is not yet in the list, then you can edit for yourself, just so for you that it's working for you, and also report it to the MobiFlight community so that we can include it in one of the next updates. But yeah, this process is now a lot easier. It's very easy to also create a pull request. So that's pretty awesome. And it also allows for future in the future for easier addition of additional boards. For example, the Nano, which theoretically now and practically is also really nicely supported by MobiFlight. We can create a new board definition, and yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun, and see also if other people will add other boards to the MobiFlight board family. What else would be nice when updating multiple boards to not have to press OK between each board updating? Well, this title is a little long, but what it basically is saying is that if you start MobiFlight and MobiFlight detects that your boards that are connected to your computer at the moment are not running the latest version, firmware version, which is going to happen once you update to this MobiFlight release, then you will then be able to simply flash all of the boards at the same time without having to press OK in between, as it used to be the case. So in a few words, the update process has been improved tremendously, and it's also super fast now. Please also let us know if you're experiencing any issues with this. All the boards are now updated in parallel. That's a new thing, and it's really, really lightning fast. So I hope you all guys like that. Change the FSUIPC polling interval to reflect a generalized refresh rate in the UI. Okay, so there was a little bit of rearranging here. Different items. You see that there's no FSUIPC settings tab anymore. It's simply not needed. It has moved to this config execution speed, slow, fast, and the test mode speed, slow, fast. And here's a little explanation. The config execution speed basically determines how fast Mobi tries to run through all your configurations and execute those, and obviously also pulls then the latest information from the sim. So it's kind of the combined setting. I think that there is really no reason to necessarily play around with this. I actually already thought about removing it entirely. It says that there might be a performance hit, but actually it's totally fine to run it on fast, and it will give you a very nice responsiveness of like, also, for example, if you have the turnaround time between an encoder event where you say you increment the frequency, the radio frequency, and then seeing this radio frequency being displayed on your 7-segment display. So this is really where you notice that best, and setting it to fast is actually not a performance problem at all. It might still be maybe if you go through FSUIPC, but for those users especially that are using it for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, I personally have not heard of any complaints, or I personally have not perceived any performance impact. So just leave it either in the standard or in the fast position. That should be totally fine. Okay, and then a set of improvements that are also related to our firmware refactoring. So first of all, we increased the memory that we are using for storing the configuration on your MobiFlight boards. So as you know, whenever you go and you upload anything, when you define a device and you uploaded this configuration then to your board, it actually is also stored on the local EEPROM memory on the board, so that the board doesn't forget what devices are configured, so to speak. And yeah, this memory size has been increased so that really it allows for 68 devices with 16 characters each to be saved on your configuration, which was not necessarily the case in the past. We also increased the number of allowed buttons, outputs, and encoders on the ProMicro board. So let's take a quick look of how much we have now. I think we actually went exactly with this. Oh, here it is. So this one. So we are now supporting 18 outputs, 18 buttons, 1 LED segment, 5 encoders, 3 steppers, 3 servos, 2 LCD displays, 5 analog inputs, and 2 output shift registers. So it's quite a bunch, and it's here for outputs and buttons. We're really at the limits. Also encoders, they need 2 pins each. So yeah, this is really cool improvement. You can do a lot more with just the ProMicro now, and this is because of the performance improvements and memory, the reduction of the memory footprint that allows you actually, or allowed us to increase these numbers. Also, a very similar request was the expansion of the number of analog inputs. Analog inputs was a very new feature, and we wanted to get some experience with it first, and we didn't also know of how many people are actually going to really use it. But now we see that there is actually quite a bit of an interest there, and for the Mega board, there was a very kind of artificial limit of the analog inputs, which was set to 5, and this has been now raised up to 16. So let us quickly double check that I'm not, oh yeah, hold on. The best thing to check is in this very same board configuration. There you can see that the module limits for the analog inputs for the Mega, for example, is 16, which is also the number of analog inputs that are available on a Mega. Cool. So let's move on. Another one here. This is go to board settings directly from module list in the status bar. Yeah, there was some kind of improvement here on the UI. It's something that just I don't know, came up as an idea while working on this. So if you go to the modules down here and you choose any one of those, it's going to open the module, the module setting tab on the settings menu, and will also pre-select the module that you have picked from this list, which can come in quite handy if you are putting together, working on your configuration, and when you're also testing with different board configurations and whatnot. So this is really, really nice, saves some time, and it's good to know. What else? In a similar section there, show COM ports on the modules dropdown. That was quite a good idea, I think. It's very helpful to identify to which COM port your MobiFlight board is actually currently connected. I think we're going to see this also here pretty soon, because I think it might be of interest to quickly see it, even though that we are displaying it here on the right hand side too. Maybe it even is yeah, in other parts also of relevance, maybe in some of those drop down boxes, but here it definitely made sense. It's really, really easy now to identify to which port your module is connected without going to deeper dialogues. All right, so the next one here is about a dialog box that will pop under a Microsoft Flight Simulator when the connection to FSUI PC or SIM connector is briefly lost. Yeah, it's very important that there's, like in my opinion, it's really important that there is a notification to the user. If you run MobiFlight in minimized mode, then there is no pop-up in that sense showing up other than a little balloon message here in the notification bar. The user here requested to remove those messages completely, which I disagree, but I thought it would still be nice to have something like an auto close behavior of many of the pop-ups in MobiFlight. So this is actually something that you will see when you start MobiFlight. Oftentimes now these notification windows that pop up, for example, during startup, when it asks you about updating a version, firmware version or so, there's a little timer that goes down and that the dialog is going to auto close, so you don't have to interact. It streamlines a little bit the experience with these notifications, because yeah, by the time that you have found your mouse and click the button, by the time the dialog is already going to go away. I think that's really helpful. Looking forward to your feedback. Tell me what you think and if you like it. Config references drop down truncates the full config name. All right, this is one improvement there, where basically the references that you can see here on the config reference page, they now span across the entire width of the dialog, regardless whether it is an output or an input configuration, as you can see down here, and just makes it easier to read through all these different names that got truncated in the past. So it's a little bit of a better user experience here, and I hope you like that too. Okay, ignore listed COM ports for non-MobiFlight Arduinos, add additional options. So this user pointed out that he has Arduinos connected and he doesn't want that MobiFlight scans for them and ask for uploading the firmware on every startup. And if there was a way, there should be a way to disable that. And actually what the user didn't know, that there was already an option for that. I think the problem was that the option that you can find in the general settings, in the MobiFlight modules tab, was a little bit misleading in terms of the label that was here next to the checkbox. So basically what I did for this one was that I gave a better name for it. So it now says scan for compatible boards on startup. You can disable this if you want. If you have Arduinos that are not MobiFlight boards, and MobiFlight is reminding you on every startup that there are those connected and asks you whether you want to upload the firmware, then you can just disable this, and then it's not gonna show with this message on every startup. So it just will leave those boards alone. For those boards that are already MobiFlight boards, it will still show you or remind you that the version that you're using for the MobiFlight boards, that it is not the most current one. So these are two different things. And I really also highly encourage everyone to upload to the latest firmware always. Please don't be afraid. Don't think like, oh, it's working for me, I don't need the new firmware. Please, we always put a lot of effort into making sure that firmware updates and MobiFlight updates are backward compatible. If something kind of goes wrong on your end, it's really important for us to know. So please, rather than not updating at all, just go update always to the latest release and then tell us if you're experiencing any issues. It's very rarely the case that we cannot recover your configuration. Maybe you also want to do a backup before. I mean, that's totally fine too, but please try and stay updated with everything. It's also better for the community support if everyone is using the same versions, and Yeah, I mean, for now, I think it's working quite nicely and flawlessly to upgrade from one version to another. All right. Okay, so then we have this one. MobiFlight opens a dialog warning. Some boards have old firmware when auto upload is not enabled. So I just said that, I just explained this, and I didn't make it configurable because I always want, as I already said, that people update. But what I changed is that it does not block your boot up process, because it's during the boot up, the startup of MobiFlight, that the scanning takes place and that this little box pops up. So instead of removing it, the dialog box will go away if you have not interacted with the box. So per default, it will assume that if you don't interact, you just want to leave it as it is for now. But it will go away after 5 seconds. And yeah, that's one of these dialog box improvements that I already mentioned, which is, in my opinion, really, really cool. Let's take a look at the last improvement. It's called Improved Procedure to Write Settings File in App Data. All right, MobiFlight stores some of the user settings that are made here, for example, in the settings dialog, here in the general settings tab, for example. It stores it in a settings file. And for some reason, just recently, and we believe, or I believe, it has to do something with Microsoft Flight Simulator not being as stable as, like it crashes quite often, that for some reason my MobiFlight also crashed and was not able to write the settings completely to its settings file. And with the settings file being corrupted, then MobiFlight was not able to start anymore, because during startup it tries to read the settings file, and if there's something wrong with it, if there's a syntax error with it, then it cannot start because it just fails to read it. And yeah, Neil was so kind to improve this read routine, and we now have a fallback in place that it would still start, but maybe some of your user settings will get lost. I mean, it's not the end of the day. There's not so many options that we store in that settings file, so it's better to have a MobiFlight app running than always failing during the start. All right. And then a bunch of bug fixes. Crash and load config when upgrading from 8.1. That was a recent report of a bug fix when a user who upgraded from 8.1 experienced issues. And that was, of course, something that got fixed. We found the culprit. It was actually that the newer versions now also check for duplicate device names for buttons and encoders, which was not the case in the version prior to 9.0. Input config wizard for FSUI PC was not using the full width. So this means here, if you go and use FSUI PC offsets, this part here was not using the entire width of the dialog for some reason. I don't know when that got lost, but we fixed it. Then change in the output config interpolation setting does not activate save button. Okay, this was also observed. We always want to make sure that the save button here indicates whether the current configuration has been edited and requires you to save it again or not. And when a user went in and made a change in the interpolation settings, then the button did not turn on. So this is now fixed too. We have had a problem with this little link, which was not working anymore because Microsoft had updated the documentations area on their SDK. So this is working again. Okay, so with this bug fix, output variables don't update unless an Arduino is connected. This is for those users, that was reported by users who are using MobiFlight only with joysticks connected, which is obviously a new thing because since 9.1 we're now supporting joysticks. And yeah, so we had to change MobiFlight that it also really reads the output variables from the flight sim that people used in some preconditions for their joystick configuration. Then MobiFlight requires a restart after the firmware upload for ProMicro. That was really annoying too. With the new firmware, this is gone. This is really cool. As I said, firmware is now pretty stable for the ProMicro. We have not encountered any problems with it so far. If you do, please let us know. Post it in the comments here on the YouTube, or also go better to Discord or our forums and provide your feedback there. The next one is double events for encoders after firmware update. That was also something funny, a little glitch with the handling of encoder events. So basically the event handler was configured every time that you uploaded the firmware again. So if you made 5 firmware updates or config updates to your board, then you would have the same number, the equal number of events coming in for every single encoder detent. So this got fixed. The enabling logging via the MobiFlight modules shortcut does not work. That was really funny. So we observed that with this new shortcut access to MobiFlight modules, where you can make it to the general settings tab, and so the settings that you changed were not correctly saved, but only when you went through this little shortcut button. And here the second last one, output config wizard forgets changes in transform when OK is pressed. Yeah, that was also something annoying. Something just that we found out was a little glitch, which if you said, okay, I make a change to this transform, but if you switch over to another tab and if you then clicked on OK, actually it wouldn't get saved. Now this has been taken care of. As you can see, the checkbox here, for example, stayed active. So pretty cool that we fixed this bug. It was a little hidden and not so easily understood. And then this one, another bug fix is second LCD screen freezes. This was really one that it sounds like a small one, but it took so much effort to get this actually resolved. So with the new firmware, you are going to be able to have really 2 LCDs connected to any of your boards, whether it's a ProMicro or if it's a Mega or Uno. And you can send a lot of updates to those screens, because in the past with the old firmware, that was not possible. We were actually running into problems, also again, memory or buffer overflow problems when you wanted to update 2 LCD screens too fast, too often. It was working fine with more static and slowly changing variables, but as soon as you started to use maybe engine RPM and maybe your current vertical speed or something like that on 2 different screens, it was just too much information sent down to the Arduino and it could not handle it. But hey, this is now possible too, and that's why I believe it's an amazing step forward with this firmware. Thanks again to everyone who participated and helping also to make this 2.0 firmware version. It was a lot of effort, and yeah, I hope everyone is going to enjoy this. It's our new baseline now, and we will have a very stable point now to enhance it and add more functionality to it. All right, so with this, we are at the end of this release review video. I hope you liked it. I hope you liked all the information. I want to say thank you again to everyone who supported here with either feedback or ideas, or even providing code and contributing to the code base on the firmware side, on the connector side. I'm really, really grateful that MobiFlight community has grown so far over the last, especially 18 months. And it's so nice to see how everyone is collaborating and trying to make MobiFlight every day a little better. So thank you very much for that. And yeah, I hope everyone is going to have a really, really nice end of the year. I wish everyone a super cool and exciting and also successful year 2022. Especially, please, everyone stay healthy, stay safe, look out for this COVID thing there. And yeah, good luck also with your home cockpit build projects. And please, if you have further ideas, feedback, or whatever, make sure you subscribe to this channel, post on the comments, provide your feedback there, and hope to see you soon here on one of my next videos. Have a great one. Bye-bye.